Good evening, I'm J.R. Niles, the author of Internet Dating. I think I read better when I got a couple of drinks in me. Yeah, right. If I don't, post it on the comments after you have viewed part 3 or session 3 of my reading party. This evening I will be finishing up chapter 1 of Internet Dating. This is once again the official cover of my book. It is in production as we speak, or as I speak, and you listen. This is the back. It should be available, well, I would say definitely before Christmas. Send inquiries to find out exactly when. I hope to know that by the time November is done. JRNE606@AOL.com. And I'm going to try and remind myself to show the book cover and the AOL address again at the end of this segment. Where I left off, Lance Austin has posted his dating profile on the website, but then the story begins a year later. I don't know if anyone noticed that in part 2 of the session, and in versus part 1, which was the prologue and the synopsis, where I said Lance was 38, but then when the story begins he's 39. That's because I start the story at a different part from where he, and you'll figure all that out once you put the story together. If I stop running my mouth and just read it, then you'll get it, right? Okay, so I'm going to finish chapter 1. I'm going to read maybe a sentence or two. I'll begin a sentence or two from where I left off in the previous session. Lance has just met up with Sherry Anderson. Lance admires her cute and innocent little giggle for the very reason of what it is, cute and innocent. He turns to his left and immediately sees her. Still nervous, he approaches her, smiles, and gives her a 1-second hug and a light kiss on her left cheek. Hi, it's really nice to meet you, Sherry Anderson. Same here, Lance Austin. Are you ready to eat? I'm starved. Yes, me too. The conversation is very light on the way to the mall's food court. He can hardly think of what to say because certain thoughts overwhelm him. Lance remembers her saying she was a cheap date. He wonders if the rule to getting a cheap date also means you get a cheap presentation of their He wonders if the rule to getting a cheap date also means you get a cheap presentation of their appearance. Lance picked from his closet probably one of his top 3 shirts for this occasion, and Sherry probably picked one from her bottom 3. Her hair is beautiful but in a lazy ponytail. The sleeves on her white shirt are rolled up, and so are her pink khaki pants legs. And she has on flip-flops. And they flip-flop when she walks. She has on no makeup, no lipstick, perhaps lip gloss. Lance can't really tell. He glances at her cheesy earrings and then down below her neck, trying to figure out the size of her breast. But her shirt isn't tight enough. Her khakis aren't tight enough either to hone in on her butt and the size of her hips. There were only 2 things about her that resembled the pictures he saw of her on the internet: her beautiful smile and her petite frame. Despite the lackadaisical first date appearance, a beautiful face and a small frame on a woman has always been 2 physical attributes that are very important to Lance. In his world, the questionable aspect of this scenario is a mental/emotional issue, and not a physical one. The latter of the 2 would be a little more difficult to deal with, or possibly change for the better. Lance's thoughts continue to wander. Well, she did more or less squeeze me into her day. Maybe this is all I can get because she's cramped for time, or maybe there's something else going on. His inner inquiries cease for the time being as they arrive at the Chinese offerings of the food court. You like Chinese food, Sherry? I prefer Thai food, but this is fine. It's quick and easy. They sit by the window, which for Lance is not a good idea. While his single status affords him constant opportunities to look at any woman he wants, it's usually a good idea to refrain from such behavior while on a date. This is hard for him. His head does turn twice while they are eating, but he at least completes his sentences while doing so. They talk again about the dating scene, this time in more detail. That guy I told you about, his name is Norman. Lance could care less what his name is. We started out as friends, now we're dating, but it's nothing serious, just casual. The word casual sticks out in Lance's mind. He knows that, depending on the person, the word casual can be used conveniently to fit whatever characteristics or mindset a person has. Lance figures that Sherry seems like the type of woman that would casually hang out with a guy, having dinner or drinks, maybe even going to a neighborhood carnival or something. Casually sleeping with a guy? No. Lance pretty much labeled her as such when they spoke on the phone that very first time. But it's always nice to detect signs of a wholesome quality in a woman, face to face. Sherry asks, "What about you, Lance? Are you seeing anyone?" "Well, I was, but I haven't spoken to her in about 2 weeks. I think that's pretty much a wrap for her. Through life, you try and try and try again to be in a relationship with someone, and I don't know, it just gets discouraging. We ain't getting any younger either." "Yeah, I know. We just have to keep praying to the good Lord, right? You believe in God, don't you?" "Absolutely. Do you go to church?" "Sometimes, but not on a regular basis." Lance keeps his answers short concerning church. He's not ready to divulge details in his church-going habits just yet. Those habits being a little less than he indicated. He wants Sherry to get to know him a little better first. This will make his once-a-year church attendance, if even that, more forgiving to her at a later stage. This meeting, though, in itself, it's kind of awkward for Lance. It's not the usual first date scenario that he's used to. He wonders if he was over-anxious in asking her out as soon as he did. The telephone connection was never really established. The connection that sets the mutual anticipation level of meeting someone for the very first time a little higher. The situation, he fears, may have become more about the material on display than about the woman delivering the material. He wants so badly for the chemistry to be there, but it's not for neither one of them. Now the pressure to make something happen becomes greater, especially for Lance. He really just hopes for a miracle because deep down inside he knows there's nothing he can do. As they walk around the mall window shopping, he feels like he's following her around. Sherry is very familiar with the mall and he is not. With the situation being as it is, it's fairly simple to find a negative aspect in anything, even when nothing negative exists. After 40 minutes of window shopping, in which he does at least realize she has better taste in home decor than she does in her clothing, they sit at a lonely table sipping on a couple of smoothies. The silence begins to overwhelm them both. Out of desperation, Lance tells Sherry the rent-a-car story. She does find the story amusing, giving him her cute little giggle. And she also starts to liven up a bit when he tells her how fast his rent-a-car is. "I thought about getting one of those," she exclaims. "I wound up getting a cute little SUV. I just got it a couple of months ago." With Sherry's certain level of interest in cars and her apparent craving for speed, it gives Lance an idea. "You want to go for a ride?" "Yes." Now his peak of interest is at a higher level, as hers is. They hit the highway going further north than she lives. He plays with the S-gear going from 60 miles per hour to 80 miles per hour in a few seconds. Lance doesn't go beyond 80 miles per hour though, because he's not completely sure just how much speed Sherry really likes. She does like 80 though. "Why don't we go to Evanston? It's not that far from here," she exclaims. They go to the beach in that area, but by now the temperature has dropped about 10 degrees or so. It was only in the 50s to begin with. Just when Lance thinks the setting is getting a little better, he knows deep down that a proper setting without chemistry equals zero. Only wishful thinking. The lady is cold. Let me put my beautiful shirt around her shoulders to keep her warm, which he does. And let me give her an extended touch of the shoulders while I'm putting my shirt on her and tell her that I know this date has been kind of blah blah, but I know we both can do 10 times better. There's just something about you, Sherry, that makes me really want to get to know you better, which he doesn't do. Lance even has the nerve to want to kiss her as he imagines her face being made up a bit. A better outfit that shows her shape from top to bottom. Some decent earrings and minus the flip-flop sandals. This outrageous thought remains a thought when he reminds himself that this woman's heart is elsewhere right now. In Lance's opinion, she really has no business being out on a date in the first place, unless it's with the guy she's so crazy about. Lance continues his thought. Well, despite this crap going on right now, a man with even half the amount of common sense wouldn't just ball this woman up and throw her away. You befriend this type of woman and maybe something will give later. I wouldn't mind being friends with Sherry anyway because she is a good girl. With that thought basically being his last concerning her, he mentally tries to move forward as far as the dating game is concerned. At 6:30 p.m. when Lance accompanies her back to her vehicle in the mall's parking lot, being the gentleman that he is, he can't help but be discouraged by the mere 2.5-hour meeting that they had. He can't help but wonder if she's headed home to prepare herself physically in a more proper manner for her real date, her evening date. A real date time with the real guy. The guy that she is so crazy about. As Lance zooms back to the south side, he makes a courtesy call to Sherry to let her know that he's near home safely. He doesn't go straight home because he contemplates going to a divorce party for one of his co-workers at his job. He also lets her know how much he appreciated the short time they spent together. This is all on her voicemail, though. Sherry did not answer. Yet another indicator of the lack of chemistry between them. Lance never makes it to the party because his mood is quite low from what happened in Skokie. He wants to blame this failed attempt of connecting with someone on internet dating. The women that men meet on the internet, he suspects, are more troubled, more desperate, just worse overall than anyone that you may traditionally meet. But rational thinking, and Sherry being only the 5th woman that he has met this way, convinces Lance of 2 main points. Number 1, women that date via the internet are no more troubled, desperate, worse, or anything else than the men that are pursuing them the same exact way. Number 2, internet dating is simply a different avenue for meeting women. It's pretty much the same game after the 2 people meet. As Lance drives around in his nice rent-a-car with nowhere he wants to go, he continuously tries to convince himself of these 2 concepts. At some moments, it all makes sense to him, and the concepts are true. 5 minutes later, none of it makes any sense at all. And that will conclude Chapter 1 of Internet Dating. Once again, this is the official cover of my book, which will more than likely be available before Christmas. Here's the back. This is the email address if you would like to send inquiries as to when exactly the book will be available, which I should know hopefully 3 to 4 weeks from now. jrne606@aol.com. And I do thank you all for listening. Nothing to really watch. It's not like I'm hanging upside down naked reading a story, which I did consider doing. I'll get a lot of hits that way, right? Thank you very much once again for listening, and tune in next time for the first half of chapter 2. I'll holla.